that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. And every day I get up early and look at the news and see what I can find.
You get up early, don't you?
Yeah, usually. Well, today it was about 3:15.
That's early.
It's early. I keep dairyman's hours. And I look through the news, find what I can about climate change and energy, and I keep a blog. I get 10 or 15 news items, each one with a synopsis and a link to the original article. And I put those up on the blog every day, 10 to 15 of them. And then Tom and I talk about the ones we think are the most important. Yeah. Today, however, I'm going to start off. Yes. Today I'm going to start with something which it was not in last week's news. It was in today's news. Today being the 5th of May. And it had not been really highlighted in U.S. news previously, but it was, BBC had it. It was all over the internet. It was all over the Canadian news. The city of Fort McMurray in Alberta has been completely evacuated because of a fire, and the statistics involving this fire are astonishing. 88,000 people had to evacuate. Of those, some have already started packing, today being the 5th of May, to evacuate to new evacuation centers because the centers they're in are threatened by fire.
So they evacuated, now they're evacuating again?
That's right.
Wow.
88,000 people evacuated. There have already been, as of last night, 1,600 buildings burned down. The fire is 25,000 acres, so it's bigger than half the size of Windham.
Too bad we don't have a picture of
Windham
that.
County. I should have brought a picture in. The videos that have been on the internet are absolutely frightening. Bumper to bumper, stop and go traffic with fire on both sides of the road. As far as the eye can see, and people were getting out through that. And flames in one video I saw actually going overhead above the road. And this is really frightening. One of the things that's frightening is there are only 100 firefighters, according to BBC, fighting against this on the ground. And it's going to be 2 days before they get any help as of last night.
They probably don't have things like this happening frequently.
No, this is scary.
Tundra and permafrost up there.
This is absolutely scary. 100 firefighters, really, in a city of 88,000? My guess is that the reason why they can't have more than 100 is because they simply can't keep them going, and they need people to help evacuate. So my bet is that the firefighters are helping move traffic along rather than fighting the fires.
And the bottom line here is this is climate related.
Well, Justin Trudeau, who's the Prime Minister of Canada, said he doesn't want to speculate about climate change on this because there's too much other stuff to do. And it would get in the way politically. And, but honestly, climate change, well, I'll ask the audience, do you think this is climate change when you've got a heat wave of 90 degrees in the first week of May in northern Alberta? Really?
They don't get too many 90-degree days in the middle of July.
This broke a record. The record high was broken by 8 degrees.
Wow.
Now, they said, well, we're pretty sure that El Nino is involved here. Yeah, El Nino happens about every 10 years, and this is the record by 8 degrees, which doesn't happen every 10 years, obviously. Yeah. So it's hard for me to imagine that we can just say, let's not worry about climate change here. But I think we should probably, unless you've got something to say about it, go on to our first article.
I just heard it on the news, but I didn't really get any of the details.
I went back to CNN just before we started here, and the first item on this had appeared on CNN about 5 minutes earlier. The American press, CNN Canada had it, but the American media has been, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, because doesn't sell enough soap. And 100 firefighters. How many firefighters did we have fighting the Brooks House fire here in Brattleboro?
I bet it was 100.
I'll bet it was close to 100. It might have been over 100. And I remember when they had that terrible fire in Worcester back around 1978, something like that, 76, 75, I guess. There were firefighters going up from North Carolina to Massachusetts to help fight that fire.
Well, they do that.
They do that.
They do that kind of stuff.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some truck from Vermont went flying out to, and I mean flying, driving fast on the road, going out to Canada, or at least offers to go out to Canada to see what can be done to help. But these people are going to need help. There's 88,000 people who are homeless, all of a sudden, like that. And one thing to bear in mind here is also, and this is one reason why this, aside from climate change, that this is relevant for this show, is that Fort McMurray is the center of the Canadian oil sands. And that means the infrastructure for the center of the infrastructure for those oil sands has been closed down. And that oil area is the third most productive in the world.
Now that oil isn't involved in its fires.
I have no idea. I've heard, the end products were the news media said propane tanks were blowing up, pop, pop, pop. And gas station exploded, and stuff like that. But clearly, this is a fire that is not going to be put out until it's done doing its dirty work. Anyway, we should get going on our first item, and our first item is from Green Energy Times. By golly!
I wonder. Well, we got a picture of that.
Do we have a picture of it?
I think so.
We have a picture of it. It's not a picture of it, actually. It's a picture for it.
Well, it was from the article.
What's the title of the article, Tom?
Wind turbine in Hull, Massachusetts.
No, that's the title of the picture.
Oh, yeah. Okay, title of the article. 98.6%. Wonder where they got that number. Of all new electric capacity additions in the U.S. have been renewable.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah, and actually, it was 54% wind and 39% solar, and about 2.5% each of hydro and biomass.
I got the numbers there.
Yeah.
It's almost 40% solar, 4% wind power,
Yep.
2.5% biomass,
Yep.
2.2% hydro,
And
1.4% natural gas.
yeah, and the 1.4% was rounding up to the nearest tenth of a percent.
I saw this. I said, "Where the heck is Hull, Massachusetts?" I didn't know.
Well,
I looked it up on the map.
Yeah.
It's a peninsula that sticks out in Mass Bay.
Yeah.
It's east of Quincy, but it's nowhere near Quincy.
Yes.
And in order to get there, you got to drive all the way around almost to Cape Cod and turn left instead of turn right. And
Okay.
it takes you up on this peninsula. It's above Nantasket, Nantasket, which I've been to. It's a very pretty place.
Yes.
I had a friend live there.
I knew a rhyme once that started with "There once was a man from Nantasket."
I didn't know that one.
Who always drank soup from a basket. It goes on
I
from
didn't
there.
know that one.
It never
I thought
gets.
I knew them all.
It's not a dirty one.
That's why I didn't know it.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, this is. We're going to see more other things come on. We're going to see.
It's a pretty town.
Yeah, We're going to see, it was Watts Bar, by the way, that is a nuclear power plant that is scheduled to come online this summer. And
Watts Bar.
Watts Bar,
Okay.
that's part of the TVA system.
Okay.
And also there was a small addition in I think it was a 1.7% increase in I think one of the plants in Illinois or someplace. I know what it was. It
So
was
these are
Catawba.
nationwide numbers. They're
Yeah,
not, they're not all
but
Massachusetts.
these haven't appeared yet. These
Right.
are nationwide numbers. This comes from the EIA, the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and they put out numbers every month, and this is for the first quarter of the year. And we are going to see, as I said, I know we're going to see an increase in production at the Catawba nuclear plant, and we're certainly going to see more natural gas. I don't know how much, though, and we won't really know until the end of the year, but they're saying that it's going to be about 3/4 renewable for the year.
3/4.
3/4, yeah.
That's encouraging.
Yes, it is.
And it's happening more because of economics than anything else.
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
Well, I got a little complaint.
A complaint
Yeah.
at me, maybe?
Yeah, somebody said to me, you know, whoever's manipulating the cameras isn't showing enough of you.
Of
So,
you being
and
Tom.
me, but that's me.
Well,
So
you
I'm
know,
gonna put myself up
absolutely.
so
There you
everybody
go.
knows what I look like.
Absolutely. Now you know, when you see this guy walking down the road, you can yell at him. But yell, "Hi, Tom." I yelled at Bernie Sanders.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
I said, "Thank you."
I had dinner with him one night.
Did you really?
Yeah.
He's a really interesting guy.
This was a long time ago. He was mayor of Burlington at the time.
Really.
Yeah.
Now, I bet that he's the only person in Congress who was a member of the Congress of Racial Equality and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the
Well,
one
he
they used to
was
call
involved
SNCC.
with those guys. Yeah, he did. It definitely was.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue. And you know, I'm actually, you know, believe it or not, people, pretty conservative in my views, although I do support Bernie Sanders and practically no Republicans. The Republicans are no longer conservative.
They're no longer relevant.
Not if you're not as far, maybe to politics, but not to thinking. Okay, should we go on to Vermont Biz?
Might as well.
Okay. What's the title for
Okay,
this
the
one?
House passes a renewable energy siting bill unanimously.
Unanimously.
142 to nothing.
Unanimously. Wow. This is the thing that they've been talking about. Now, it still hasn't been made a law. I don't
No,
think.
this is
It has.
only.
This is
it's
just the
halfway
House.
there. It's got to go through the Senate.
It's got to go back to the Senate.
Yeah.
The Senate had already approved it. The House had made some changes to it. It's going back to the Senate. People are still arguing on it, both
Well,
sides.
there's a lot in it to like, and there's a lot in it to dislike, and they're trying to iron out everything.
What they're trying to do is to get it so that everybody dislikes at least something. So we'll see what
but
happens.
basically, it's putting in a certain amount of home rule.
Yep.
You will be, under some circumstances, the people from a town will be able to approve or disapprove.
But in order to do it, they have to have a town energy plan.
Yep. Which isn't.
It has to be
not a bad idea.
No, it has to be certified.
Yeah,
And
no,
so nobody has this at present.
Well, it is a good idea.
It's a good idea.
is a good idea.
Yeah. So there you go. That was from Vermont Biz.
See if I got anything out of here. Well, I'll just quote Tony Klein, who's a Democrat from
always
East Montpelier.
useful to quote. I had a picture of Tony Klein on a motorcycle with long hair,
Oh yeah.
giving the photographer an obscene gesture. He was a little younger in those
Well,
days.
what he's saying here is worth listening to. We're in the middle of a grid transformation, he said.
Yes.
The days of big baseload generation power generators located hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, transmitting their product over huge transmission lines over many of our mountains and fields is not the future.
You know, this brings
We
something.
talked about that same thing.
Absolutely. This brings something to mind, and
Yeah.
that is maybe our entire system should be rethought.
Well,
now, I wouldn't throw those old transmission lines out, but You know, I think about if every town in Vermont had its own way of generating power, if every state in the country had its own used its own ways of generating power, you could have a grid that looked more like a network rather than transmission lines going from here to there.
I think that is what is going to happen just because it makes more sense.
Yeah, and if you think about it, that's the telephone system has always been a network.
Yep.
It's an extremely low voltage network, but when you pick up the phone after the power lines go down, it usually works. And what we're suggesting is, why not do that with power? And if we had a power outage and every town had its own ability to produce power, even if it couldn't produce quite enough for itself or produced a little bit extra, we could have that on a smart network that would power the state.
Well, the model we had worked well for the 20th century.
Yeah.
It brought power to America.
And we ain't in the 20th century no more.
No, and what he's saying here is we are going to what's called a distributed generation grid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're going to it because it makes more sense for the environment. Yeah.
Yep.
Makes more economic sense.
Yep.
And mostly because it is independent, secure, and reliable.
Yep.
Bingo.
Bingo. And cheaper.
In the long run, it certainly
It's
is
going to be
Yep.
cheaper. It's going to be much cheaper. Okay, we're up to the Concord Monitor. This is still on Thursday, April 28th. What do you got for a title for this one?
Well, New England has enough electricity production, even if a heat wave hits.
Yep, with solar power equal to the output of Seabrook Nuclear Plant, along with sufficient efficiency programs and demand response, New England should have more than enough electricity resources to meet demand this summer, even during a heat wave, according to ISO New England, who, of course, is the expert on the subject. And I would recommend everybody get a smart, be put on the grid as a smart customer.
Yeah. What they're saying here is there's 29,700 megawatts that the power companies, the producers, have guaranteed they can do.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's more, a little bit more that they could squeeze out if they had their feet to the fire.
Here we go.
And the projection here is that the most we're going to need is 29,000. So they're just a little bit above what we're going to need.
Right.
But that's the most we're going to need.
Yeah.
And last summer, just to put this into perspective, the demand for power in New England peaked at 24,400 megawatts.
Oh, okay. So this is well over the last
And
summer's
the
peak.
all-time record was in 2006 when the demand in New England reached 28,100 megawatts during a heat wave.
Yeah.
So we're there, you know,
Yep.
we're self-sufficient.
Yep. We are a quarter of the way through the show, and we are one day through our program of 7 days. So we have to move on.
Well, the next one comes from Germany, and there's a picture here.
And this one was problematical.
I'll get the picture.
And I found out what went wrong with a link, and I still haven't repaired the link at the website.
No, the link was wrong. Yeah, I found an article, but it wasn't
the same one. What happened was the source for this article, which was Business Recorder, doesn't use the title in the URL. It uses an integer. Oh. And it had overwritten that integer with another, with a thing going to a different.
Okay.
Because I tested this, it worked. And then when you said that you couldn't find it, I went back and couldn't get there. And there was no way I could get there. I did a Google search on it, and the Google search gave me the same link, and the same link took me to the other article. Anyway, this is about Next Kraftwerke. Do you want to read the title, or should I just go on?
Well, Germany's Next Kraftwerke expands virtual power plant model.
Okay.
And the picture there is a small producer in Germany.
Yeah, this is a very small producer.
A very small producer.
But
I was wondering about the name Next Kraftwerke.
Kraftwerke.
It turns out that Kraftwerke means power plant.
Yeah, yeah.
And Next is the name of the company.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Next means anything in German or not.
No, it's taken from English. At least I think. I might be wrong about that. But a German virtual power plant operator aggregates small producers and sells their output in lucrative balancing markets. The firm stands to place more than 10 terawatt hours on power exchanges this year, up from 9 in 2015 and 5.3 in 2014. And this is really kind of amazing. I looked at that and saw 10 terawatt hours.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's more than twice what Vermont Yankee ever did. And this is basically a computer in an office. And what they're doing...
They're not producing any power here.
No, but what they are doing is balancing the load.
Balancing the load, yep. They've made a deal with a whole bunch of people. You got power to sell, we got customers.
Yeah, and if with the customers, you want to buy the power at the lowest possible costs, we will sell it to you. But you're going to have to set the meter is going to have to tell what the current price of power is when you use it, and you're going to be setting your appliances, for example, your dishwasher or your water heater or your dryer, so that they will come on when the price of power goes down to the price at which you want it to run.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. So anyway, that was in Business Recorder, but
we couldn't get it.
We couldn't get it. And that picture, I just loved that picture. I thought it was a cute little picture of a mountain.
Mountain stream, and
mountain stream, and it's been diverted.
Sitting back home reading his newspaper, and meanwhile he's generating power.
Absolutely, and I have no idea how much power comes through that, but that's similar in size well, actually, this is not similar. The output is similar in size to a very low head place that I saw once, where the guy was saying that he had calculated it at 10 kilowatts, but that pipe, how much that's actually producing depends upon how far up that pipe goes. If it goes up 500 feet or something, we could be getting a lot of power out of that little building.
He's got a lot of head if that's the case. We don't know that.
I mean, I've seen turbines that were not much bigger. They were not big enough. They were too big to go in that building, but not. It would be by inches. That were 20,000 horsepower. 20,000 horsepower. So.
Okay.
Pelton wheels, these things operate with high pressure.
Right.
Okay, Huffington Post is the next.
The untold grassroots history of Iowa's clean energy transformation.
Wow. In 2006, 75% of Iowa's electricity came from coal, and more coal was planned. Now, Iowa-based utility Mid-American says it will be 85% wind power by 2020 without raising electricity rates. And Mid-American, by the way, is Warren Buffett.
Yep.
So this is the
big guys are
getting it. And we don't have a picture for that, but we do have a picture for the next one. We're still on Saturday, April 29th. This is a Canberra Lake George wind farm, and it's not in Canberra. It's actually, have you got that?
Yeah, we got a picture, right?
We have a picture.
It's
the Canberra Lake George wind farm, which is not in Canberra. It's about 15 miles from Canberra. Certainly close enough to Canberra that the infrasound gets to Canberra.
Well, Canberra itself is interesting. I mean, it's a town.
Yes.
But it's their equivalent of Washington, D.C.
Yes, that's right. It's the capital.
Australian Capital Territory. That's the D.C. part of it.
Yeah.
And Canberra is the
Washington part
of it.
That's right. And this is about 15 miles out of town. And we have this is from Renew Economy. You got a title for that?
ACT, the Australian Capital Territory.
Yep.
Lifts the 2020 target to 100% renewable energy. That's 2020. That's coming up pretty quick.
That's coming up quick, and this is in Australia.
Australia stalls. That's a little dig at the politics.
Absolutely. The Australian Capital Territory, which had a 90% renewable energy target by 2020, said it will in fact get 100% of its electricity from renewable energy by that date. ACT's climate change minister said the switch to renewable is achievable and affordable. And of course, one thing about that, I said that wind farm is close enough to Canberra that Canberra probably gets infrasound from it.
You think so, huh?
Yeah, but female elephants call male elephants with infrasound from as much as 22 or 23 miles away.
Okay.
Yeah, but the wind farm is probably getting a great deal more infrasound from Canberra than Canberra is getting from the wind farm.
Okay. It took me a while to figure that
The
one
first time I ever had any experience with infrasound,
Uh-huh.
I visited a shop. It was a machine shop in New Jersey, and the guy there they did really super precision machining, and the guy there had been hired by some organization to provide 21 seismographs for California. They were super sensitive, and 20 of them rather. He made 21. He just wanted to make sure that he had an extra one in case one of them got broken or something. Well, it turned out he had the extra one. Nothing got broken, so he set it up in his office. Mm-hmm. And he found that it was starting to register Earth activity, you know, the kinds of activity you'd get in earthquakes and so forth, mm-hmm. at about, I think he set it up on a weekend, 6 o'clock Monday morning, it started going, and it just went gangbusters all day. And then it finally settled down about 9, 10 o'clock at night. And the next morning it was going at 6 o'clock.
Oh boy.
And then he said it was like this every day except Sunday. It didn't come on Sunday. It would show a little blip now and again, but that's all it would do. And the thing was directional, so he could figure out where the sound was coming from. And he found out that it was coming from a very broad band.
Okay.
And he didn't know whether it was north or south because it wasn't directional to be able to tell that difference. But he finally figured out that it was trucks driving by on Route 22.
I'll be darned.
And that was infrasound, and it was coming from 3 miles away.
I'll be darned. Okay.
And it was enough to cause what looked like an earthquake to this little
I
seismograph.
can relate to that because when I was a kid, I lived near Fordham University.
Yeah.
And Fordham had one of the first seismographs that any university had at the time.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 50s.
Yeah.
And they noticed that regularly there was a small earthquake. I mean, very regularly.
Yeah.
Very low on the scale, but it was an earthquake registering, and it turned out it was the nearby 3rd Avenue L.
Listen, I lived within about 100 feet of the Myrtle Avenue L, and I know what that's like. And yeah, you can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
You can feel it. And of course, the first 4 nights I was there, it kept me awake all night, but because it went by every half hour, but in the middle of the night. But you know, I got used to it. Anyway, we should keep going. We have got not enough time for what we're talking about here.
We got a picture here.
We have a picture coming up. And this was from the Staunton News Leader. You got
the residents react to pipeline explosion.
Oh my gosh.
There's a picture of a burned out house after a
this pipeline explosion
in Salem Township, Pennsylvania.
Right. A 36-inch natural gas pipeline 30 miles east of Pittsburgh exploded. One man got burns as he ran for his life. Towering trees were reduced to blackened poles. You can see them right there. And siding melted off buildings. Well, that building didn't have any siding left, so we can't show you a picture of that right now. A quarter-mile evacuation zone was established, and the cause at the time of the publication was unknown. That was on April 30th.
A huge whooshing sound.
Huge whooshing sound.
I don't think I want to hear that.
No, thank you, no. Our next item.
An interesting takeaway here. There's plans currently in place for a new 42-inch Atlantic Coast
I'm
pipeline.
sure that just appeals to all those people, you know, who say we need to have a natural gas pipeline in our town. Let's put a wind turbine downtown instead, okay? And, you know, they do that in some places.
Yeah, they do.
Our next item is from CNN.
New evidence shows that conservatives are warming up to climate change.
Yeah, at present, 47% of conservative Republicans now believe climate change is happening. That's according to a national survey released this week by Yale Program on Climate Change Communications and the George Mason University's Center for Climate Change Communication. And, you know, okay, 47%. And the rest of them, well, they
with
pay
some,
attention.
it's an article of faith.
It is an article of faith, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm cynically saying, you know, they don't really believe that. They're just saying it for political reasons.
They're saying it because they have got a political because they've got a feeling of dependence on certain publications that deny climate change. And those publications happen all to be supported by fossil fuel industries and Koch industry.
Brothers and
you know, I mean, okay, it's like I've got the gospel according to Donald Trump. What is that going to teach me?
Yeah.
You know?
I hear you. Well, let's move along to Nebraska now.
Nebraska. Okay. HPPR, I've got no idea.
They don't normally think about water, but the headline is Nebraska would save almost 2 billion gallons of water by switching to wind power.
Yeah, if Nebraska switches from coal to wind energy, it would save the state almost 2 billion gallons of water a year. According,
we got a picture.
We have a picture.
Yeah,
according to, yes, there we go. we're very professional here.
It's just another picture of wind power. I don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
That's a pretty picture.
It is, actually. According to the Center for Rural Affairs, Nebraska currently ranks 4th in the nation for wind energy potential and 13th for solar energy potential, but relies heavily on coal. And, you know, the coal people don't want Nebraska to switch. And by the way,
giving us an example here.
Yeah.
The coal-fired Sheldon Station alone uses 120,000 gallons of groundwater per minute.
This is groundwater. That means they're sucking it out of a well.
Pumping it out of the ground.
So it's coming out of aquifers.
And that's to cool the power plant.
That's to cool the power plant. Man. But, you know, it comes out of aquifers, which means that other people's wells are going down.
Basically, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Unless they're pumping it back into the ground.
Yep. And our next item, we've finally made it to Sunday, May 1st.
Where's the Sunday?
And we have another picture.
Got another
again,
picture here.
Wind turbines. Got lots of pictures
again.
of wind turbines, yeah. And this is from the Climate Group.
The wind power industry sets new records across the world last year.
Global wind power installations are estimated to more than double in the next 5 years, according to a new study, which also spotlights the record global wind growth in 2015, led by China and Germany. You notice the United States is not included in that group. Prices continue to decrease. Renewable energy is a priority in many countries, and you know, China
We're way behind here.
We're way behind in China in wind. We're way behind China in solar. And guess what? That means that 20 years from now, 15 years from now, we're going to be way behind China in energy security and way behind China in our ability to compete without being dependent on fuel, which other people produce. And as a person who is, as I said, fairly conservative, I find that appalling, and we've got a political party that finds that that's just dandy. And also, when the Pentagon goes to testify before Congress, as it has year after year after year, that our biggest security risks include climate change, which may be the biggest, the people in that party put their hands over their ears and pretend that they don't hear it. And they're the ones who are claiming that they're being patriotic. It is just mind-boggling. You want to know why I support a socialist? It's because I support survival of the United States and its democracy.
Bingo.
Bingo. And I'm a life member of the National Rifle Association. Okay.
Well, a quick one here. The Global Wind Energy Council, that's the one that's behind this article,
yes,
really.
Yes.
Projects Asia to reach around 800 gigawatts in the next 5 years.
Of wind energy.
Yeah.
Which is the equivalent of about 350 nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
And with decent transmission lines, you can transmit that power to any part of China.
Yes.
And the Chinese also are putting forward an idea, which is to have a worldwide transmission net,
worldwide
grid for power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're going to be selling power to Europe.
Technologically, we can do that now.
Yeah. They want to sell their power to Europe and the United States, which means that the United States would be more dependent on China. Good idea.
Good for the Chinese.
Yeah.
Well,
especially if they decide they want to
here.
have a bone to pick with us.
Move back to Texas.
Texas. Okay.
This is also interesting because it's from Texas.
Yeah, it's actually from Clean Technica, but that's okay.
The Texas solar prices are currently the lowest price per watt in the country.
Yeah. Green Tech Media notes that the average gross cost of solar energy system in China is the lowest in the country, down to $3.21 per watt. While
That's the cost to build one.
That's the cost to build one. While the national average is about $3.69 per watt. This is based on data from Energy Sage's second solar marketplace Intel report. And by the way, I have seen prices for installation of solar power outside the United States as low as $1 per watt.
I think we talked about that last
Yep,
week.
that was in Vietnam, but it was a Canadian company putting it in. Thank you, everybody. Let's just export anything that has to do with power from the United States, and I guess that includes military.
Well, we're on Monday, May 2nd, and this is a good article. We could talk the whole show on this one.
Yeah.
It's about the Tesla Model 3.
Yeah, although Clean Technica has got so much stuff on automobiles that it drives me crazy. I don't want to read about cars anymore. But this is important,
Well, let's
so
get
I
a
put it in.
picture of the Tesla
Let's
Model
put
3
a
up
picture
here.
up there. There you go.
Yeah. That's a nice looking
We're going to
little
have
car.
another picture next week of the Tesla Model 3, maybe.
Well, according to this article, the Tesla Model 3 is changing auto history.
In its
And it really is.
Yeah, in its first week alone, Tesla amassed about $14 billion in implied future sales, making this the single biggest one-week launch of any product ever. And it's growing. Last week, Tesla had almost 400,000 orders for the Model 3.
And they're not dreaming about these orders. These orders have a down payment.
They have a $1,000 down payment. So when they're talking about 400,000 orders, they're talking about having received $400 million in cash.
Wow.
Okay.
And here we go.
And where are we? We're at offshore oil, right?
Well, we're still talking. I wanted
We're
to
still
talk
talking. You
about
talk
the
about Tesla. Okay, I'll try to keep my talk in the background about it.
A couple of quick things.
Good idea.
It's extremely quick.
Go
That's one of the
ahead.
things.
Go ahead, Tom.
The first time an affordable electric car doesn't have to apologize for running on batteries. So it's 0 to 60. Well, it didn't give the time. But
6.5
some of the
seconds.
fastest times in the world.
Yeah.
The first electric car to check off all the right boxes. Affordable? Check. Desirable? Check. How far can you go before you have to charge it again? Long-range car, a couple hundred miles.
Right.
So they're doing everything right. I mean, this will be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely, it will. And other car companies are doing the same thing now.
And they're also talking about the charging infrastructure. Now, Tesla themselves is building a charging infrastructure, mostly concentrated in the East Coast and far West Coast. But they're getting ahead of the game here.
Right.
And then there's at-home charging,
Yes.
which most people will be using even now, even
Yes.
with the Tesla charging
Right,
stations.
right.
They're going to charge it at home.
Yep.
This is kind of a dream happening.
Yes. That's what it is.
Okay, so let's move back to oil.
Let's move back to oil.
Yeah,
Okay.
we could talk a whole.
We could talk
maybe
forever
we ought
about
to
this
do
stuff. Do a show on it?
Do a
Okay.
show on it.
Our next item is from BBC News.
Yeah, we got a picture of this guy too.
We do.
And it's up.
It's up.
Oil's climbing back. And it's interesting. That's a picture of an offshore oil rig.
It sure is. That's
Now,
why
we
it's got a
showed
fire.
a lot of pictures of offshore turbines, and it's just nothing much there but a turbine.
Yeah.
But here, in order to drill, you got 3 separate structures there.
Yeah.
And well, let's talk about it.
What's the title?
Well, I said that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oil's coming back.
The price per barrel of global benchmark Brent crude ended April just above $47, since dipping briefly below $30 in January, and it has risen nearly about 2/3. That sounds a lot, and it is. But it's worth remembering that the price is still down by, 30%
30% from
on this
last
time last year and 60% on June of 2014, and it's still about 3/4 of what it needs to be for most of these companies to make any money.
Well, that's part of this article with the oil shale and fracking people. That industry has terribly declined
Yes.
because there's a limit to how long they can withdraw oil without refracking.
Yes.
And refracking costs money.
Yes, and another thing too is, as the price of oil went down below $30 a barrel, investment in renewable power did not decrease.
No.
Now it's going up,
Uh-huh.
and my guess is that's going to drive an increase in renewables.
Well, I think you're right.
So, you know, this nothing that's happening in the oil industry, I think, is really great news for the oil industry. That came from BBC News, in case I didn't
There's
say
a
it.
lot more in that article, but we got to move along.
Yeah.
So the next one here,
Next one is from C News Renewables.
a bid for 800 megawatt solar project into Dubai falls below US dollars 30 per megawatt hour.
Yeah.
To put that into American ease, that's 3 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
What are you paying
and
up?
that is unsubsidized. That's unsubsidized. This is bizarre. And Dubai's tender for the right to build the 800 megawatt phase 3 of the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar complex, and I'm sure I did it. I tried on the
You did a
pronunciation.
good job. It's not too far.
Has attracted a bid of just $29.90 per megawatt hour, 2.99 cents per kilowatt hour. The Dubai Electricity and Water Authority is now evaluating a total of 5 bids, and the winner will be announced in June. And this is really 3 cents per kilowatt hour unsubsidized? You know, that would be the equivalent in the United States of 0.7 of a cent per kilowatt hour. But, you know, the actual cost would be 3 cents per kilowatt hour. At that price, the way what I figure is, at that price, you could put battery backup on this and have it come to market below the current cost of natural gas, and the cost of natural gas is going up. This is really bad news. And the same day we didn't have it come in here was when I saw that thing of a 150 megawatt plant being proposed for Vietnam at a cost of $150 million. That is $1 a watt for solar.
To
Well,
build it. Wow.
The cost of labor in Vietnam is significantly lower than it is in the United States. But that's not the only thing that's making the difference.
Interesting thing here is a year ago, at the start of 2015, they went out for bid. And the prices were twice as much as they are today.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we're up to
making
Tuesday,
progress.
May 3rd.
Oh, the Solar
From
Impulse.
BB3, yes, the
Yeah,
Solar
we've talked
Impulse.
about this guy.
Let's look at the Solar Impulse. There it is.
Let's get it up there. The Solar Impulse Aeroplane, that's English,
Yes.
reaches Phoenix, Arizona.
Solar Impulse, the zero fuel airplane,
And here's
has
a picture
flown.
of it taking off pre-dawn.
Yeah, has flown the first leg across the continental U.S. in its attempt to fly around the world. It left Mountain View, California at dawn on Thursday and landed 16 hours later in Goodyear, Arizona. It was the 10th leg of its round-the-world quest. So, you know, these guys are still going. They got hung up in Hawaii for 10 months, but they're still
Well,
going.
they burnt the batteries is what they did,
Yeah.
making that long trip to Hawaii.
That's right. And they found the reasons for that. So they know how to make things work better.
Well, basically, this is not about transportation.
No.
It's about proving a point.
It's about proving
And
a
I
point.
think they're gone a long way toward proving it.
And they're spending millions of dollars proving it. But, you know, it's a very interesting proposition. Our next one is from the Concord
Coming a little
Monitor.
closer to home.
Yes.
Hassan, which by the way sounds Arabic.
No, but I think it's Irish, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Hassan signed solar bill into law, giving boost to renewable developers.
Right. Solar power in New Hampshire cleared a major hurdle on Monday after Governor Maggie Hassan signed a bill into law that doubles the state's cap on for net metering from 50 megawatts to 100 megawatts. Net metering is an incentive that lets people sell their excess solar energy back into the grid. This is from the Concord Monitor. And, you know, I know people who say, 50 megawatts, really? To 100 megawatts, really? That's not a lot of power. I mean, it is if you've got it on your backyard, but
Well, that's what they're talking about, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's a lot of backyard power plants.
Rooftop
Yeah.
solar and...
But you know, the point that the people who were talking to me were making was, really, we should be talking about much higher caps, and in my opinion, we should be talking about no caps at all.
Yeah.
And I admit, we have to be careful to be fair to everybody, and that even includes power companies.
Well, they're still going to be maintaining the lines, and they have to be paid for that.
Yes, that's right. It costs money to do that, and they should be able to charge for that.
And even if everybody's generating their own power, it's going to be useful for them to be all interconnected.
Right, that's absolutely true. So, I think what we should have is net metering, but it shouldn't be at a mandated price. It should be on a smart grid where it sells its power as on the spot market.
That could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be done.
Yep. Anyway, our next one, our next thing is from Bloomberg.
Well, one U.S. state holds the key to $10 billion offshore wind boom.
That was 10.
What state is that?
10 million or 10 billion?
10 billion. Did
billion.
I say million?
No, I just want to make this clear. 10 billion with a B. Lawmakers in Massachusetts are drafting a bill that would jumpstart the offshore wind industry. The energy bill is expected to require utilities to purchase power from offshore wind farms, according to Representative Thomas Golden, a Democrat, whose party controls the legislature. This again is from Bloomberg. I will say that the governor of Massachusetts does not sound like he's terribly enchanted with the idea of offshore wind.
I don't think he is. Well, I think the article says exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, it does. The state's Republican governor has already opposed one offshore project.
Right.
But they think he will sign this one.
Really?
That's what the article said.
Okay. I had forgotten that. I did read that he had opposed an offshore project.
Well, we're way, way, way behind in offshore wind.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a tremendous potential off the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got the continental shelf there. How far out does it go?
It
50
goes
miles?
In some places, I think it goes out 200.
I mean,
and
so
but
it's basically shallow water from Maine to Florida.
Yeah, but the technology to have offshore wind in deep water is there.
It's
it
there
can be
too.
used.
Well, the Japanese are doing it.
Yep. So, and it's being done. I've forgotten. I think the French are doing some trials on it, and it's being done elsewhere in Europe.
So if Massachusetts goes ahead and does it, and already there's something going on in Block Island, right?
Yes, the Block Island wind farm is.
So if Massachusetts does it, they start making money, which they will.
Yes.
It's going to spread.
Yes.
I mean, money talks.
Yes, that's right.
Fair enough.
But the problem is that you've got people who want to make sure that money doesn't talk. Anyway,
it only talks to them.
Yeah. So our next item is from Electric Co-op Today, or if you wish, Electric Coop Today.
Electric Coops, yeah. So this is Community Solar Day in Oklahoma.
Yes.
And the picture there, which I will bring up, is wind turbines. Where?
In Oklahoma.
That's another pretty picture.
Yeah, isn't it? And it says Oklahoma is the latest state to get into the game of community solar. Tri-County Electric Coop, headquartered in Hooker. I'll bet that's the same Hooker that the Hooker-Dunham Theater is named after. Maybe. Hooker-Dunham, in case you're not familiar with it, is in Brattleboro. Dedicated
You
the first.
think there is a relationship there?
Well, I think the relationship goes through General Hooker, who was the Civil War general.
Okay. I'll buy
Dedicated the first community solar project in the state on April 26th. TCEC members pay a one-time subscription fee of $340 to buy a share into the project. And of course, there are many ways of doing things.
Credit on their electric bill.
Yeah.
Each month for their share.
Now, why we've got wind turbines in an article that is talking about solar power, I don't know. This happened to be.
I didn't even catch that one.
Most of the pictures that are up here actually accompany the articles that we talk about.
Yeah.
And there are a few that come from Wikimedia Commons, and this one happens to come from it, but it's not one I found. It's one that was with the article. Yeah. At least I think. Maybe I made a mistake.
Well, community solar is something, and it's starting to take root here in Vermont. It makes
sure
sense
is,
for
yeah.
people who can't put solar on their
Yeah,
roof.
and in fact, it's starting to take root in New York, which just adopted it.
Mm-hmm. That's New York State.
New York
Yep.
State,
Yep.
that's right. So that is that. And now we're up to Wednesday, May 4th. Believe it or not.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We
We're getting
maybe
there.
moved too fast, but anyhow.
100 gigawatts of PV capacity installed in Europe.
SolarServer.com says, according to new information from IHS of Inglewood, Colorado, Europe recently reached an important solar energy milestone, installing 100 gigawatts of grid-connected PV power. PV is one of the most competitive forms of electricity generation in Europe today. 100 gigawatts is, I'm going to say, equivalent to slightly less than 20, well, about 20 nuclear power plants.
20
maybe.
average size power
Yeah.
plants.
And
Which Yankee was before they went into that upgrade.
Right. And modern plants are bigger than Yankee, so fewer of those. But this power is being, when they say it is one of the most competitive forms, well, we talked about 3 cents per kilowatt hour earlier.
Yeah.
And there is no way that nuclear power can compete with that. And
No, they can't.
They just can't. I mean, the Hinkley 3 plant, they want a guaranteed cost of, I think it was, my recollection is it was 93 pounds per megawatt hour, which would be about $120 per megawatt hour. So they want a guaranteed wholesale cost of 12 cents per kilowatt hour.
I think it's higher than that. I
It
think
might
it's up
be.
in the 20s.
Okay, but they, you know, the point is,
It's ridiculously high.
it's crazy. It's crazy expensive, and people are going for it because they have this obsolete idea. They have an erroneous idea based on obsolete understanding that you need baseload power, which you don't, and it's been demonstrably.
That's a pretty valid point.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Baseload power, as we know, is what you're using all day long.
Yeah,
And then there's peak power,
yeah,
which you use on very hot days, very cold days.
Right.
And that costs a lot of money.
yes, a lot of money. People
lot of
don't understand how much money.
And you got to go out in the open market, and there's people offering bids, and
Right.
you accept or reject the bid. And as you said, some of those bids are very, very high.
Very, very high. I've seen the cost of spot power on the Australian market go to $12,000 per megawatt hour.
Wow.
And that was when a big coal burning plant suddenly shut down, and the power companies were just scrambling trying to meet need, and of course what they had to do was shut down the load.
Well, the customer doesn't pay this stuff.
No.
The utility has to eat it.
No,
They're promising to give you power, and they got to scramble to get it.
Right.
Sometimes.
Green Mountain Power has paid 60 cents per kilowatt hour for wholesale power.
Okay.
During times when there was a high demand.
Okay.
And that, believe it or not, was in the winter. But
Was it really?
Yeah,
Well, yeah, cold snap.
yeah. Cold
Yeah.
snap came, and they needed that electricity, and they put it on the grid, and they paid 60 cents per kilowatt hour and charged the customers 15. But
One of the interesting and fortuitous things is a lot of solar power comes on at the time when there's most demand.
yeah, that's right.
And you get solar power on a cold day.
Yep. But if
Temperature
you
has
have,
nothing to do with it.
you know, nuclear power, big coal plants, they're all really a bad match for grid demand.
Yeah, they are.
You cannot build your, you know, the thing that I tell people is, suppose you had an island that was big enough that it needed a maximum of 1,000 megawatts of power. And you said, okay, we can meet that with one nuclear power plant that produces 1,000 megawatts. So we'll put in
Bingo.
one nuclear power plant. The problem is the nuclear power plant has to be fueled every 18 months or 2 years.
And that's a lengthy process.
And that's a lengthy process. It's going to last a month or more. And so what do you do during that time? Well, if you're going to power it 100% with nuclear power, you need a second nuclear power plant. Okay, which will also be 1,000 megawatts. Okay, but what happens? You know, you've got to have the ability to know that you're going to have power even if you're fueling a plant and another plant trips.
Yep.
So you need a third. You can't do it, which is why nobody does.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next item comes from Renews, Which,
Yeah, we got a nice picture here too, and I'll bring it up.
that's a little kid sitting on the top of a small turbine.
I don't think it's a little kid.
No, that's a big guy.
That's a big turbine.
That's a big turbine. You could live in one of those things. I mean, if there's no equipment in it, and you didn't mind climbing a couple hundred yards to get to your house.
The title here is Wind Leads Scots Renewable Energy Dance.
Yeah, Scotland's.
They're ahead of the game over there.
They are.
The Scots are.
Wind power jumped 15% in April 2016 compared to April 2015, putting nearly 700 megawatt hours onto the national grid. Figures highlighted by WWF Scotland shows
It's
that
the World Wrestling Federation.
Yes, I think it is. Actually, it's the World Wildlife Fund, which is very active in promoting renewable power, especially in Scotland. Shows that the country's turbines generated enough to meet, on average, the electric needs of 79% of Scottish households. That's a lot.
I got something in here. Yeah, here it is. On the 8 days during April, wind powered 100% of the Scottish homes.
Yes. Yeah.
And results, it says again, the second sentence, results were driven by both stronger winds and higher capacity.
Well,
there's more turbines.
There's more turbines. So if the wind was exactly the same, they would still have more. But the winds were higher.
And it says solar was also strong despite a late surge of winter, providing 70% or more of an average household's electricity.
Isn't that amazing?
Huh.
Who would have thought of solar power in Scotland? I mean, honestly.
Thinking about that, yeah.
Yeah. My daughter lives in Glasgow, and she says...
She's still living there?
Oh, yeah. She's getting married in Glasgow
really?
to a guy who lives in Glasgow. They're going to get... To a
Scot.
Yes. and they are going to be... they're going to get themselves a small estate, which I think means that they have a house and a yard. But
that's an estate. Huh?
Heaven knows how small that yard is. I don't know, and they might even have a flower pot. But anyway, they're going to be living in Scotland. She says, if you go through a winter in Scotland, you understand why they all drink whiskey. Yeah, of course, the summer. You can go through a summer and find that the sun goes down at 10 o'clock at night and comes up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
By the way, do you know the word whiskey is a Gaelic word?
Yes.
You know what it means?
It means water of life.
No, whiskey means water.
Okay. Uscuba is water of
that's
life.
Water of
yes,
life.
That's
but
right.
It's
whiskey
kind of
is
funny
water.
because you'd be walking along the street in Ireland, you see a little grate in the sidewalk, and it says whiskey on it.
Okay. And the bars that run across that grate are called whiskey bars.
Whiskey bars, right.
Okay. Our next item is from Echo World, and it is our last. So prepare for this, ladies and gentlemen. The show is about to end.
This is a very interesting article.
Yep.
The largest civil disobedience in the history of the environmental movement begins today.
Now that was yesterday. It was the 4th of May, and it'll be going for 12 days. Starting on the 4th of May, a global wave of peaceful, direct actions lasting for 12 days will take place across 6 continents, targeting the world's most dangerous fossil fuel projects under the banner of Break Free. And there's the big, most local one to where we are is in Albany, New York.
Yeah,
but
and there's people right now organizing bus rides. From various parts of Vermont, maybe one from Brattleboro.
Interesting.
Albany.
Yeah.
I think it's on the 14th.
On the 14th. I should
I was
look into
thinking
that.
about going, but I got something else that interferes with it.
Well, I've always got something that interferes with everything. It's just one of those things in natural law.
If we got the time, they got a list of the countries that are taking place.
Ooh, you have it?
Australia, Brazil, Canada, Germany, Indonesia, New Zealand, Nigeria, Philippines, South Africa, Turkey, and the UK.
So we're at the end of our time,
more or less.
So we should say goodbye and hope that you're all well.
You say goodbye.
Yep.
You're on camera.
I'm on camera.
And now to satisfy my fans.
There you go. Goodbye. Goodbye. So we'll see you next time. Have a good week.
Put us both up for the finale.
For a finale.
Wind blow,
There you go.
strong as it will.